Right, I am sat here with Sean, aka Minister, Ben, aka Benny Noir. Both of these lads, not only good friends, but also DJs that have played at 1-2 and Waz and Friends. Obviously, you're both joining us again for Waz and Friends on May 18th, which is in aid of Mind Charity. I think what we wanted to do, all three of us both said we're quite passionate about mental health. It's just trying to have a conversation around the topic. It's not the easiest thing to do. I do think we're not trying to be experts here. We don't claim to know everything, but hopefully by us having a conversation, it will send a good message for you guys to have a conversation too. So boys, first of all, thank you very much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
No problem, no problem. And before we do get into it, I must just say a massive thanks to Nick and Abbey Rangers as well for letting us use the venue. If you're looking for a local football team that are passionate about mental health as much as we are, definitely get down to them on a Saturday and check them out. But boys, let's get into it. I'm going to start with you, Ben. What does mental health mean to you?
I think mental health is a topic that's come up more frequently throughout my life and throughout other people's lives that I know, and just something that should be spoken about more that naturally just isn't spoken about enough.
Yeah.
And we were having a discussion before about what it means and what it can mean to different people. But yeah, for me it's just something that people need to be more aware of and talk about more.
Yeah, for sure. Sean, anything to add?
I agree with you there. I think maybe a bit more so in my younger days, I didn't really think about mental health at all. Lately in my life, it's become much more serious, I guess, and I take it more seriously. But like earlier, maybe in my teenage years and later in my teens, I didn't really ever think about it, to be honest. And naturally, maybe my ego speaking here, I didn't want to talk about it, especially to my mates who, like, you want your mates to sort of, you just want it all to be fine and dandy and good times only. But yeah, I guess as I'd like to say matured, my later years, it means it's quite a, it's a prominent part of my life now.
Yeah, for sure. I think you hit the nail on the head there. Is as you get older, obviously life starts to become real, you get more responsibility. But I think definitely the ego thing for males especially, actually being able to speak about how you feel it takes some doing. So we'll see how we go today, but it's definitely the hardest thing to do. But once you are over that hurdle, you quickly realise, I'm sure you boys are the same, if you've ever opened up to your mates, it becomes very easy to do because, they obviously want to hear it and they care for you. So yeah, we're trying to explore a little bit more about how we look after ourselves and what we can do.
Yeah, and on the back of that, I think if we're ever suffering, a lot of the time the suffering happens in your head, and you might be really scared to speak about it. It could be to anyone, family or friends, or literally anyone, someone you work with, someone you pass by in the street. But a lot of the pain normally is just in your head, and then once you actually start, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's like a release almost, isn't it? You get it out from your head, chuck it into the world. Yeah. It definitely begins to become a bit easier. Sean, how often do you talk about your mental health?
I guess I'd have to say probably all the time. I talk mainly to my girlfriend. We talk to each other a lot. It's quite natural. When
you say all the time,
I guess we don't just sit down and go, let's talk about mental health.
Yeah.
But we don't speak every day. That's something that a lot of maybe couples think is a bit weird. But we'll maybe just speak when we see each other. Yeah. We don't really text much or anything like that. But when we meet up, we try and have like a meaningful conversation. Yeah. And for me, that's been a massive help to maybe get me out of some dark places, or just maybe even some negative habits. Yeah. I'd say we talk about it all the time because we check in on how we feel. Yeah. And it could be as simple as, I've just eaten loads of shit this week and I feel like rubbish, or work is getting me down or whatever.
Is that like a structured thing where you go, like what I'm trying to get at is, do you sit down, I know you say we don't talk about mental health, but are you conscious that, right, I'm going to go and ask her how she is now, or is that just something that naturally comes up?
Yeah, you have to force it, I believe. I've got maybe 2 people in my life that are like that. One of them being Annabelle, the other being Jordan, who is just someone I go to the gym with. Like, I met him in the gym, but he goes at the same time every day.
Yeah.
But like, you know, this is what I mean. It doesn't have to be your best friend. You don't have to open up to, you know, your close pals. It can be people, like for me, Jordan in the gym is probably the guy I've spoken the most to about my mental well-being, which is quite weird.
Shout out Jordan.
Yeah, big up Jordan. That's my brother. He's probably never going to see this.
Not many people will.
True. But yeah, you know, we very much like, we're both into, like, we read a lot about like philosophy and things, and we share ideas. I know.
Philosophy.
Yeah, like stoicism and like ancient philosophy. And
yeah, no, you've lost me. It's
just stories basically about the ancient philosophers and their lives. I know it's a bit sad, but we bond over it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess I think your question was like, do you sit down and talk about it, and is it structured? Yeah, it is at first.
Yeah.
Like, I think you have to force it. You have to sit down, you have to force it at first, and then it becomes more natural.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think, I know I've seen something before lads done, because when you go and meet someone, like say if we went for a beer now, you go, how you been? First of all, no matter how they're feeling, they'll be like, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm sweet, I'm good. And actually, I picked this up from, I can't remember where I saw it now, and I don't use it, but I think like I should use it, is once you ask the first question and they say, yeah, I'm fine, then you follow up and you go, how are you actually? And actually, you'll probably get a truthful answer there. Because everyone, don't know about you, but everyone, when you say, hello, how are you? Yeah, good, thank you, you. Yeah. And that's done. Whereas if you followed up with a second question, actually, you might get the real answer on how actually are you. Take a breath.
I think it's worth like doubling down on that. Like, if someone doesn't really want to talk about it, that's fine. Yeah. Like, if they just go, yeah, I'm fine, sweet, like leave it be. But you're so right. It's just habit, isn't it? I'm so guilty of that. How are you? Sweet.
Yeah. It's easier as the person, say if you want to ask how someone is, it's easier to almost avoid it, because you don't want to make the other person feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, of course.
You know, if they actually do want to speak about something, maybe you know subconsciously it'd be easy just to avoid the conversation. And I think that's the key, isn't it? Is
definitely one of the personal situations that I had was like, I had like someone that I knew very well. They were going through quite a difficult time, and I knew that, but they weren't opening up to me.
Yeah.
So I kind of researched online about, you know, how you go about dealing with that type of situation as someone who's not in the difficult rut, but has someone else that they know that's in a difficult rut.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. Not forcing someone to open up too much to the point where it does the complete flip of what you're actually trying to do in the first place, and like offering someone to be able to open up to you in a way of just like, how you feeling, rather than like, is something wrong, like it's like wrong, or like, do you know what I mean? But that's a really, really important point.
I suppose it's about, and this is probably why it's such a, maybe it's got the stigma of a difficult conversation, is everyone's different, everyone deals with it in different ways. Not only the person who maybe you're asking the question to, but the person who is asking the question, it's everyone does things differently. I think that's the key, isn't it? So I suppose trying to speak about it. I mean, Sean, sounds like you do it pretty well.
No expert, but
this is the thing. No one's an expert, but trying to bring it to the forefront of conversation when you can is obviously a positive thing, and then get it into a positive habit.
Definitely, I feel like you need we spoke about this earlier. You need like to form some sort of circle around you where you can just bounce questions off people to make sure that you're like vetting decisions that you're making, or vetting thoughts that you're having, so that you can kind of come away from things and just feel a bit more relaxed about maybe certain things. Like, one of the things that I've got quite good at recently, and I'm in no way saying that I'm a perfect human being and like everything's all good, because there is times where it's not so good. But I think it's like in that ability to kind of just ask those questions has really served me well. And just helped me through difficult periods where like you turn to the person that you love, or like the person that you have close friends.
You have to also pick, I believe you have to pick your times when you do open up, because it can be quite like, if you're just someone who just sort of like lets their heart out to everyone, you might not always get the support or the reaction you expect, and that can actually make you less likely to talk about it again in the future. So that's why with me, like I said, I've got a couple of people around me that I just really trust. I trust their opinion, like they inspire me. So I know whatever I say, even if they're going to be a bit brutal, I know it's like I'm going to get value out of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas sometimes, you know, and I've been guilty of this in the past, you open up to someone or you just, you know, speak about your thoughts or your plans or whatever, and you don't quite get the reaction you expect. And, you know, that can lead to a bit of discomfort.
Ends up making you feel worse. Yeah, okay. Next question I was going to sort of come on to was the role of social media. Obviously, probably our generation is the first to deal with social media on this scale. I certainly think that although it brings about a lot of positives, there are a lot of negatives. Be interested to hear your boys' thoughts on how social media maybe affects mental health in a negative way, and maybe how you deal with that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, for me, like, the problem that I had with social media, because I think I went through a period of time where I just found myself, you know, like as soon as you open your phone, the first thing you do is click on Instagram. Or like when you wake up in the morning, you literally lean over, you pick up your phone, and Instagram's the first thing. And you start looking at what other people are doing and getting not jealous, but like thinking like, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that. And I'm just like lying here in bed. And I think when you get to that point, what I learned to do very well is like, just stop dead and just basically delete the app. And like, so I watched a guy called Damien Hughes, who's quite a prolific like professor within psychology, and he talks about tripwires quite a lot. And maybe this is something that, you know, people watching should maybe have a think about, or watch at least. But he talks about that exact situation. So like when you realise that you're doing something that might be negatively like impacting your mental health, there's that tripwire to say like, okay, I need to now do something about this or action it. And in my case, I just found myself going to Instagram all the time and getting basically pissed off that I was looking at other people doing fun things. I just wasn't doing fun things as well. Yeah. So my tripwire was like, every time I realised that, I'd delete Instagram. I wouldn't have it for like 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. I've been up to like 2 months at some point. Nice. And then you get it back when you're ready. Yeah. But it's difficult in the music industry because obviously, you know, you want to, as an artist or as a producer or you know, as an event, you have to have that. Yeah. As a, you know, a release of content.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been points where if we didn't have like our whole business on Instagram, there'd be points where I'd be questioning why I have it. Yeah, and I think everyone shows you don't go on Instagram and see photos of people sat in their living room on a Sunday evening having dinner, or you see them on the top of a mountain or at a rave or just got married. Like, you see everyone's best parts. So I think your subconscious, you go on there, you see they're having the best time, they're doing this. And although you might not think that, it must have an impact. I mean, I don't know the psychology behind it, but that must have, yeah, well, I've got a professor over there. That must have an impact on everyone's having a good time, I need to go and do something. And then you end up posting something, and I'm guilty of it. I posted stuff, I don't really give a shit about what I posted, but I'm doing it because everyone else is. You almost need to like live up to this social presence. And I think that's really toxic, to be honest.
It is. And I think the music industry is quite toxic because of that. Yeah. I think the music industry has probably always been quite toxic.
Yeah, look, we're not being slag off the whole. Yeah. It's got positives, but I 100% agree.
Oh, but 100 million%. Like, social media has so many benefits. It's really massively helped me in my life with, but mainly with my music, 100%. With getting it out there. Like, I guess when I first started really releasing music, it was during COVID and lockdown, and everyone was like mega supportive. Like, all my friends would, literally everyone I knew pretty much would repost, because it was quite, I just feel like post-COVID, everyone has been more engaged in like Instagram and social media, and everyone's like a creator now in their own little way. Whereas before, I found the support I received, and it was massive, and that's just from like friends and family just sharing things, and it helped me get basically off the ground with my music. But I'm with you, like there is a lot of negatives with it. I think it's mainly related to like the dopamine response.
I mean, TikTok is the other one we haven't mentioned, right? And I mean, I've deleted that app several times and re-downloaded it. I'm not really sure why I downloaded it. I mean, you can spend X amount of time on TikTok, and someone asks you what have you watched, and you wouldn't be able to answer.
Yeah, it's just so addictive.
It is very addictive, and the fact that you can't reach an end. I mean,
It's a rabbit hole. They call it doom scrolling.
Yeah. On the flip side, like to be controversial, like one benefit that I've found from social media, which has like positively impacted my life, which in turn helps mental health, is like changing your algorithms for things that you want to learn.
Yeah.
And it might sound like pretty cheesy and cliche, but like as a producer or an artist, let's say you want to pick up on certain things and you want to learn certain things, like for me that's really helps.
Definitely.
Like I'm being able to flip that on TikTok, for example, not watching stupid videos for like 30 minutes, which I still do.
Yeah.
But with the occasional thing where you can learn is...
I think the key is we're not saying social media, like we're not going to go away from this and all delete Instagram and TikTok. I mean, Ben might, to be fair, going off what he said. But, but I think there's obviously positives to it. I mean, without Instagram, Waz and Friends, what I'm doing, we wouldn't be sat here right now. Like my whole business is online. But at the same time, there's got to be a balance to, you've got to self-recognize that this isn't good for me, or maybe I should have some less time and try and restrict the amount of time you're looking at the screen. And I don't know, I think it's about recognizing it, because we're not all the same. Everyone spends different times on different apps, but I think it's recognizing what's healthy for you and trying to actually take control of that, rather than just wake up, scroll, what am I doing, go back into that negative cycle.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there with balance. Like everything has to be a balance. And with social media, it's the same thing. If you've been on the app for 3 or 4 hours in a day, it's probably not, whatever you're reading or viewing, you're not going to remember, you're not going to even really care about. And it creates also a lot of competition. Like going back to the music industry and social media, you're only ever going to see the best clip of that DJ set. You're only going to see the best music they made. You're only going to see like that girl looking her best in that outfit. She's only going to post that, right? So you're going on the app and you're just seeing the top highlights of everyone. That's the toxic part. It's not so much that people are going on there to be toxic. It's just a toxic environment. And you have to take everything with a pinch of salt. And I'm really guilty of putting things on Instagram, getting some comments or people sharing it and thinking, wow, like this is amazing. Like I'm the bollocks. And then having a bit of a reality check, like this is actually real.
I think that's what you just ended on there is also very key, is like, don't take the highs. If you post or whatever you're trying to do on Instagram, even if it's just you're posting yourself and you start to get a load of likes, don't get carried away with it. It's just likes. It doesn't mean anything. Where also the same, if you post something you like, not many people have liked that, don't take that as a low. I think it's trying to be middle ground, trying to have balance and not try and let it affect you as
hard,
much.
like in the music industry, like as an artist, you've worked on something like a track for, let's say, I don't know, a month, and you're really happy with it, and you put it out online, you get no likes, it destroys your mental health. In reality, if you put it out to the world, I'm sure you get enough people there where you'd be gassed about the fact that people like it. Do you know what I mean?
So
like, you shouldn't just be worried about the amount of likes you get. You've only got so many followers. Out of them followers, only so many people go on their phones. They might not have even seen it. We all know how shit Instagram algorithms are now anyway. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, for people in the music industry, it's probably an important thing to think about.
You're right. It should literally never be about likes. It should always be about the music. You know, if you're a producer, make the music because of the feeling of being creative.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I do feel like post-COVID, there is more of an appetite to make bangers. And people like producers.
The clickbait stuff almost.
Yeah, I think producers now maybe feel a little more anxious to be super creative and a bit weird because they just want to make bangers that they're going to get that clip. That's from my perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like asking yourself, like, is this actually, as an artist, like what you actually want to put out there, you know? And then you might get into that kerfuffle of like, shit, is this what I want to be doing? Then your mental health gets affected because you think you want to be doing something, but you're actually doing something else, stuff like that. But
yeah, I think taking it away from, because obviously we could, well, I mean, especially you two boys could probably chat about music industry. Let's maybe take it away from that for a second. How do you, for yourself, how do you first maybe recognise your mental health state, and how do you keep it in a good shape, I suppose?
I think, to be fair, it can just hit me at a random time. You know, I'm not always checking in on myself, and I'll be honest, for the last sort of year, I've been in a really good place.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I have many low points.
Yeah.
But that's mainly because I am a bit more strict with what I do to keep in check. And yeah, like you asked, what are some of those habits? I guess mainly it is physical, fit, like keeping fit, eating the right food, and making sure I'm sleeping well.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm sleeping good, I'm probably gonna be happy. I'm a pretty simple guy.
Sounds silly when you say it, but
So
that's right. The basics,
yeah,
the foundation.
And I know we want to move away from the music industry, but like a massive part of that culture is late nights.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're a raver or a DJ or a promoter, there's probably going to be some 4 a.m., 5 a.m. sessions in there for whatever reason. And you'll wake up on a Sunday probably feeling pretty rough.
Yeah.
And like that's, for me, that was the main thing, was that over and over again, every weekend, not sleeping properly. And yeah, now I've kind of got a bit more balance in my life. I sleep really good.
Yeah.
I'm a proper early bird. And I'm up early, and yeah, that's probably the main thing, sleep for me.
What about for yourself, Ben?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think I've ever like necessarily thought about like when, or realised that when I've been feeling like shit until it's actually happening. Do you know what I mean? Which is then like not too late, but like you're like, okay, how do I now go about dealing with this? But off the back of what you say, Sean, like you're so right. I think what a lot of people do that maybe go to events or they have these late nights on the weekend is like they don't realise that like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, your mental health might not be affected because of who you are, it's because of what you're doing. And if you don't recognise that, you're never going to be able to change that feeling. You spoke about the last year, you've completely changed the way you are and your mental health's really good. So like, yeah, that'd be my thing. Probably.
Yeah, I think this, and we'll keep saying the word balance, it keeps coming back to whatever you're doing, whether you're in the music industry, whether you're not, whether you're a raver, whatever it is, it's balance, right? And I look back at sort of the years that, that I've had where I've maybe dipped in how I'm feeling. It's all to do with highs and lows. So, for example, if we take the festival, for example, we work on that for months. The months leading up to it, especially the weeks, it's a lot of anxiety. What happens? You know, is this going to happen? Is it going to rain? What happens if X doesn't turn up? Or, you go through a million things, and people can relate that to real life, whether they're working or, you might be chasing a promotion. And I think the overthinking and the getting carried away with the what if, it really sort of affects me, and that's what I struggle with. So it's about identifying that and just trying to stay middle ground rather than getting carried away with the highs and lows.
Like we said earlier, a lot of it is in your head, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like a lot of the suffering and the pain normally comes from your own thoughts. It's like you're anxious about something that's going to happen in the future that normally ends up being fine.
Yeah, well,
so,
doesn't.
You spend more time worrying and, suffering when really everything is fine. And even if it's not, you'll still get through it,
For people that, because obviously what you've just said and what we've said seems easy, right? But for people that are like, I can't just get to that point, what could they go out and do now? Is it, because I appreciate we're saying we're maybe coming from the position of we've been, feeling good in ourselves the last however X amount of time. But the people that aren't and maybe can't identify why not, what would your advice be? And again, we're not experts, we don't know the right answer, but interested to hear your
I think one of mine that I learned, it was actually a quote from my mum, which is quite...
Mum's always
know best.
Know best.
And she, when I was feeling shit like a few years ago, she just turned around to me and was like, time's a healer. Just give it time and like focus on yourself. Make sure you're getting your daily like routine in check. Make sure like, what do they say, like messy head, messy, something like that. I can't remember what it is.
Inspirational.
I think it's like messy, is it messy room, messy head or something like that? Like, and what it effectively means is like, make sure you got all your eggs, all your stars aligned, and like, on off the back of it, then you'll feel great. But yeah, I think time's a healer is a big one.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like you say, everyone's different. Everyone's got, we're all different. We've all had a different past. So I can't speak for everyone. I can just speak from my experience. I had to distance myself from negative situations, negative people, and negative, environments that before I was consciously putting myself in. And I was, I thought I was fine. And it took basically a bit of a bender in Ibiza to realise that I wasn't fine, and that I was basically a bit sick of my life. Like I just didn't. I was living this pretend life on like social media and stuff, and I kept kind of saying, oh no, but saying to myself in my head like, no, you're doing really well. But realistically, I wasn't actually happy because I was just a bit sick of what I was doing.
Yeah. It's funny you say it. I feel like a lot of lads I speak to now, obviously no one ever really goes into the details, which is maybe a good or bad thing, who knows, but I get the feeling that a lot of people feel like they're looking at everyone else, or maybe not even everyone else, they're looking at a selection of people on Instagram who are living their best life, who are probably just living a life like everyone else is, and they're maybe in a job they don't like, or I don't know, they're doing something they don't like, and then they're so critical of themselves, and then that leads them to, that's like the first step in a downward spiral. And I think trying to identify that, first of all, social media isn't always right, and actually trying to forget about everything else and just look inside yourself and actually what makes me happy, what are good habits for myself. I think that's a good starting point, is trying to do positive actions on repeat, and also trying to reach out to someone who you trust. And I appreciate that's obviously quite hard to do.
Yeah, and although we are all different, we're also all the same. We're all made from the same material, and there's things we can all do that will definitely make a positive impact on our life. And the first thing might be, just doing some exercise. Yeah. Genuinely, I think that is probably the quickest way of improving your mental health, is just get out and walk every day, and you'll instantly probably see a difference. If you're not doing that already and you're feeling down, that would probably be the first thing I'd say. And even better if you can walk with someone. Like I've recently started walking with my mum, and we, since I moved out, I don't really ever see her. I know, poor Siobhan, mate. Every Wednesday, mate. But yeah, exactly. Like, I maybe would never really have a proper conversation with mum, but now because we're walking, and your blood's flowing, you actually chew the fat a bit and get into some stuff. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think, again, nail on the head. I think for people that, I think it's important to mention people that are in a really bad way. A walk isn't going to solve all your problems. Like, this isn't a go on a walk, you'll be fine. That's not what we're saying here. But as a preventative and something you can do where maybe you feel like you're slipping towards that, the exercise and things like that will help. Yeah. Obviously, for the people that are in, really bad hole, or feel like, if things are a bit more serious, then look, probably we're not qualified to say what the best advice is, but definitely things like that as a preventative. And I always think preventative is probably better than getting to that point and trying to deal with it.
That's an interesting one. Like, what's been like the biggest thing for you, do you think? Like for yours was like obviously going out for walks and exercising, but like I hate, like, what for you, what's been the biggest thing for me?
I think if I look back over the last 4 or 5 years, I've finally realised what makes me feel good on a day-to-day basis. I think if I look back in a couple of moments where I say I was really not upset, but feeling quite low about myself, at that point it was to reach out and speak to someone, quite often my mates or my family, and 100% that then puts you on an upward spiral. I think the first time I ever opened up to someone about a topic I won't go into now, was I built up in my head for so long about opening up to someone, and then they've finally done it. I was like, fucking hell, weight off your shoulders. And that makes you feel so much better, and especially because if you good judge of character, your true mates and your best mates are, they're not going to turn you away. Like, they're going to sit you down, and all that stress and worry that was making things worse suddenly releases. But then if I look at the times where I'm fine and maybe feel like I'm, I don't know, stressed or anxious, then exercise 100%. And go on a run, turn your phone off, go on a run, or just listen to music or play football, or get outside is 100% the best way to do it. Question I was going to chuck back at you boys, for someone who maybe, because there's probably someone out there watching this, hopefully people watch this, that might be in a bad space and thinking about reaching out to their mate, especially lads who, we know there's a huge ego thing. Men don't like to speak about emotions. They might be thinking, what will happen if I reach out to my mate? They might be worried about that. If someone came to you, Sean, I'll start with you and then Ben, what would your reaction be?
What if a mate came to me?
If a mate came to you and said, look, I'm in a really bad place for X, Y, and Z, what would you say?
I think the main thing is ask a few questions and just listen. Like realistically, it's not about, I haven't got a remedy, to be honest with you. My mental health isn't perfect. I genuinely don't think anyone is.
No.
And yeah, I think ask a couple of questions, tell them, it's going to be all right, because most of the time it is, 99.9% of the time, it's going to be okay. And just sit back and let them speak. And, from that will probably come a conversation that maybe I can relay some of my experiences, times where I might have gone through the same things or feeling the same way. So yeah, I guess I wouldn't try and give any advice straight out of the bat. Just listen and see what situation are you in and how can I support you in getting out of that. I think all of us can. We'd all do that for our mates.
Anyone would. I think that's what I'm trying to get at is for someone who's worried about doing that, and I relate it back to what I just said. I built up my head for so long about speaking to someone, and you speak to them and you're like, why didn't I do that earlier? Because they obviously care about you. They're going to listen to you, and the listening is key. It's just someone to speak. Yeah. And I know it sounds cliche. What's the phrase? Problem shared is a problem halved, or something like that. And it literally does feel like that. You feel like you've released something from you, and you can actually feel like you go forward. And yeah, I mean, shout out to all my mates who I've opened up to. Great people.
Yeah. And I just say as well, I think opening up doesn't actually, it won't solve everything. No. And like a lot of the time, actually solving the problem, or at least progressing on it, is going to come from yourself and working on yourself. You're opening up can be so beneficial to like getting you started. Yeah, because it gets it out. Some people don't have friends to open up to, genuinely, or they do, but they don't feel comfortable, and they never will, and that's fine. In that situation, get a book, start writing writing your thoughts down, just get it out, or even like there's like hotlines and things. I think
it's cool. There's I've seen loads of them before. I think I've known some people as well that use them. Like, it's just about creating that space for someone if they approach you, where it is open and okay to talk, which is like massive. I mean, I couldn't put my answer any different to yours. Really.
Feel sort of secure in what they're saying.
Yeah, give them the time of day, listen, let them talk, ask questions.
Definitely.
Sure. I think, to be fair, that's what I would want from someone, and just for them to listen and try to understand it. So
I'm sure we all meet friends probably for a beer every now and then. Some more than others. You might even meet them outside of the pub. But you'd be surprised. There's a whole thing around men don't talk about their feelings, but you'd be surprised once you sort of get over that initial hurdle, it'll all come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers, lads.
Ching, 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 ching. So, something I wanted to speak about was the role of alcohol. Obviously, we're sat here with 3 beers. I'm not expecting people to go away and stop drinking. I'm certainly not going to do that. It's a massive part of young people's culture and the music scene. But I think going back to what you said earlier, Sean, about balance and trying to manage that, how do you view alcohol and how do you balance that in your life to not get carried away in I suppose, maybe a negative way?
I think it's easier said than done. Yeah. And I'd love to, I go through stretches of saying, I'm not drinking this month. And then like 3 days in, I'm down the pub, whatever. But yeah, literally going back to it, I know we keep repeating ourselves, but balance. Yeah. The fact that, I don't really drink anymore, apart from on a Sunday, straight after football. Weird day to do it. I know, but you know what? It is a weird day to do it, but it's kind of, I really look forward to it now because I have a beer after I play football, and then I see my granddad every Sunday, so I take him out for a bit. He loves a pint. He's 82 and he's still all right. So it's because of because I'm not drinking during the week and I've got a bit more time on the weekend and I feel fresh on a Sunday. Yeah. It's actually quite nice to just have a few beers. Yeah. I don't drink every weekend, but that's probably it. Having the balance, having the moderation, and taking advantage of just feeling fresh on a Sunday. That's why I drink then.
I think the balance is, to what you just said, is, again, we keep saying is key, but it also works in the sense that and I see a lot of people, and I do it myself, where you're like, right, I'm not going to drink this weekend, or I'm not going to do that, or I'm not going to do that. And actually, that's probably just as unhealthy as saying, you know, maybe I'm drinking too much. Or I think it's about realizing that when you're doing it too much, just stop, but not also setting huge expectations like, I'm not going to drink that weekend. It's about understanding that, you know, sometimes you might get caught on a Friday night and you fancy a beer. That's fine. Don't feel guilty about that. Don't feel crap about that. But at the same time, if you're then doing that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there's a point where you go, right, that's probably unhealthy. And it's about understanding your own limits and trying to work out what makes you feel good on a long-term basis.
To that, you know, I've had some of the best nights out sober.
Really?
Honestly, because you're so fresh and present. I think the first initial phase where you're like, oh, everyone's drinking, and you just feel like a bit like, wish I was drinking. I've done a few dry Januaries. We've all done that in the past. Instant regrets. And yeah, like I've had some amazing nights sober. So I think the main thing is like realizing you don't need it. You definitely do not need it. You know, it can be there and you can use it and you can have fun with it, but it's also very easy to get out of hand as well.
Definitely. I think one of the important things for me off the back of like that and what we spoke about earlier is like, how do you help someone that is maybe going through a bit of a difficult time? And if that is through drinking, it's about making sure that you keep that circle of people that you know and trust. That if someone is kind of going in a direction that you don't feel is the right direction, making sure that you intervene in the correct way, but you know, at the right time as well. I think, like you say, it's absolutely fine to drink. It's like that's part of life. Like
we would not be sat here.
Literally.
Our business runs on that.
Definitely, but just in moderation, and if you recognise as well, if you think about it yourself and you're like, do you know what, I think I might be taking this a bit too far. Go back to what you said earlier, which was like, check yourself. Am I doing all the right things? Is like my life processing in the best way?
Do you guys think though, like, times the biggest lesson you get from alcohol is normally on like a Saturday or Sunday morning when you're hanging out your arse?
Yeah, definitely.
And it makes you think, you know, do I really enjoy it enough to feel like this? They're the sort of questions I would maybe encourage people to ask. And you know, I've got mates that can drink big time and I can't bloody keep up. And like, for me, if I drink that much, if I party that hard, I crumble. I haven't got the minerals, to be totally honest. Whereas I've got mates that can, well, at least it seems like they can. But for me, I think I came to a point where I realised, you know what, I can't hack it. I can't drink like, you know, this frequently and this much, you know. And I've found now a place where, you know, I drink enough where I can maybe have a bit of a sore head, but I can still function. So
I think if you're asking them questions and you're serious about it, you know, and you're actually dreading then drinking because of the hangovers, that's probably a time to go and I need to have a think. Of course they get worse, definitely get worse. But, you know, I'm in groups of, look at some of my mates in certain circles and we've all had honest conversations of, you don't always want to go out just to drink. Like it does feel in the UK, you go out, you drink. And actually sometimes, maybe on a Friday night, you go and play football or something instead. And I think if you have maybe the balls to suggest that to your mates, there's probably chances are a couple of other people in there that are like, do you know what, I could do that. Still see my mates, still interact, still be social, but I don't have to drink and wake up and feel shit. And then maybe you go and do that Saturday rather than Friday, but at least again, it comes back to that thing of balance. And I definitely think for a couple of mates that I have, that's been a big bonus to them.
There's a benefit as well. Like if you don't drink, you save a fair amount of money.
You're
saving your dough. And if like you say, on a Friday night, let's say you go and, you know, do an activity, the money you would have spent on beers and the rest, cabs and all sorts.
I think what we're saying is, I've just come to me.
Okay.
Don't drink. Wait till like from now, probably about May 18th, and then go wild. I think that's what we're saying. Wait till like you've got like a big event coming up.
Your brain was ticking when you had
you just come to me. Do that. May 18th or July 27th. That's the one.
You know what? Although it's a terrible plug, you've got a point. Like if you
Save
just
it to a big occasion.
Exactly. If you put, you know, if you want to drink heavy and go on a mad day out, fine. Come on, like. I do that if I'm going to the races or the football or something and I want to get involved. Absolutely fine. But, everyone's different and you've got to weigh up where's the line? Like, where are you pushing it?
Yeah,
and at what point are you maybe, this is getting a bit silly now, or if you're sacrificing things like financially, if you're sacrificing relationships, because all of these things do get affected by drinking.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone will
Definitely.
realize that.
I think one of the things that I've noticed, to be honest, me personally as well, like a few years ago and with other people, you get stuck in this like cycle of just like, whether it's like you just go out with your mates every weekend, but all for all the wrong reasons. And if you can recognize that, one of the things that I realized was that actually the things that make me feel good in my mental health is spending maybe one night of the weekend making music or something like that.
Yeah.
The other night I might go and see some friends, but you just rein it in and then you keep everything for the big days. But if I think about the times when my mental health has been at its absolute worst, it's when I've been stuck in that cycle of it feels like the norm to just go out and drink as much as you can on a Friday night and then a Saturday night. Yeah. Then Monday rolls around, you don't feel good till Thursday. We've all been in it. And like, if you can recognise that and stop it, I'm not saying I'm perfect because I probably still do fall out of that on certain occasions, but as long as you just get yourself back on track.
Yeah, of course. And I think that we're sat here on a high horse telling people what to do, but we're all guilty of it.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. It's okay to be like that as well. That's the one thing that people should think about. Is like, it's okay to slip out a line every now and again, because like we say, no one's perfect, and
Mate,
you just learn from your own mistakes.
It's okay to be rock bottom as well.
Yeah, for sure.
You can get to a point where you feel like you've really fucked up big time. You might have lost you might have lost your partner, or lost some friends, or you could have just messed your body up big time. It's not the end of the world. There's always a way out, and it's fine to be in a bad place. Yeah, it's just what you're gonna do about it.
Yeah.
It starts from you, doesn't it? And I think it's about identifying how you're feeling and trying to stay middle ground, not taking the highs for too much, not taking the lows for too much. And that actually leads me on to my next question, because something I really struggled with, if I go back last year, was the build up to a certain date or a certain event. And I'm gonna use the festival as an example, 1-2 festival, the stress and the anxiety and the worrying about the date. 2 weeks before, will this go wrong? What will happen if X happens? What will happen if Y happens? And just that constant worry destroyed me. It's like just sat there anxious, and you almost having I had like panic attacks almost, in that 2 week period. And if I look back, that's not healthy.
No.
And I have a great time. The day is absolutely brilliant. Like, I've had best days with 1-2 festival, amazing. But that 2 weeks is a lot. And, I've now got that coming up, and I'm sure if people relate this, maybe they've got like a big work event or, I don't know, some big life event, and they might be in the same position of worrying, and I'm a massive overthinker. Interested to hear your boys' thoughts on maybe how you deal with looking at the future and try and maybe take a more level-headed approach than me that sort of presses self-destruct.
Main thing I think I would say is you're definitely not alone, and I think every single person goes through that, and it's really normal. In the music industry, that's probably a common example. I've had that with events, especially when you're invested heavily in the events, or you've got DJs coming down. We get a lot of local support at our events, so it's like, if something goes wrong, you're not going to live that down for a little while. So I'll just say, everyone goes through this. A lot of the suffering, again, is in your head. A lot of that pain is from your own thoughts. So when you're in that moment getting anxious, or you feel yourself getting anxious, just see if you could do something about it. There's always someone that you could talk to, or there's something you could do that could make it.
It's funny you say that, actually. Now I think back, when I then aired them opinions to other people, and they kind of rationalise them for me, and like, well, you're thinking about this overthinking of what if, but they actually made me look at, well, what if it doesn't happen? And that's very likely to happen. It's about sharing it.
We spoke on the phone the day before 1-2 Fest.
Yeah.
And I was actually in the pub, funny enough, probably about 4 pints down. And I think, you gave me a ring and you said,
I remember.
Yeah, we got an issue with the wind.
Yeah.
The Thames.
You were there.
You'll know about the wind.
And I think he was saying something along the lines of, if you know anyone with a tent, bear in mind this is the day before the gig.
Can relive.
For you, because I was running the second tent.
Yeah.
With Satori, and he's going, if you know anyone maybe with a bigger tent, I'm thinking, so I'm in the pub going around to all my mates like, who's got a tent? But to be fair to you, when I spoke to you on the phone, you were still, although you were probably feeling,
I was having a fucking meltdown.
you were still quite level-headed and being quite logical and rational. And I think that's the main takeaway from this. However you feel emotionally, don't let the emotions drive your decisions. Like, think logically about the situation. Is everything going to be okay? Probably. Am I going to die? Probably not.
Yeah.
Okay, right. That's, the first
Didn't start.
and then just keep working up and up. And although that situation was pretty scary, it still wasn't the end of the world.
No.
And you had it under control, and it was a successful event. And was it? Yeah, it was.
Right, boys. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you for the last couple of hours. I don't know how much we'll make the cut because we have been rambling a little bit. But Sean, if you had to summarise from the conversation that we've had and maybe a couple of takeaway points, how would you summarise yourself?
I think I would say it's not as difficult as it looks. Like we've all sat down for a couple of hours, although there's cameras everywhere.
Do you mean the conversation?
I mean, just talking about maybe uncomfortable things, like how we feel.
Yeah, nice.
Times where, I've spoke to you guys about low points in my life. For a lot of people, that's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Just speaking about our habits, speaking about, having anxious thoughts is something I've dealt with. I know I've got lots of friends that I have no idea how they feel.
Yeah.
So it would be good, if anyone is out there who just kind of wants to change up their life a bit or, improve themselves, just sitting down and having a chat with your mates, sharing ideas and experiences is so valuable. I've got a lot of value out of this. So
yeah, the hardest step is the first one, I think, is getting yourself to that point where you actually speak about it. And I think after that, from personal experience and what you boys have said, once you make that first step, hopefully it becomes easier.
My main takeaway is it's not actually as hard as you think.
Yeah.
That first step, which is the hardest bit, is pretty easy.
Yeah.
We all just arrange a sit down.
Yeah,
this could be, let's go to the pub at 6, sit down and say, how are you feeling? Instead of just going, yeah, I'm all right. Say, you know what, work's really getting me down.
Yeah.
Or
be honest.
Whatever it is. And see where it goes.
Yeah, for sure. Ben?
I think for me, realizing that kind of there's so many other people that are going through similar things, and you often just isolate yourself as you're the only person that feels like it's just important just to recognize everyone else might be feeling a certain way, and it's like you say, speaking about it is the most important thing, and making that first step is key.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I think people can sometimes build it up in their head that, oh my God, everyone else, and it goes back to social media things and the things you were saying earlier, everyone else seems fine. When actually, there's probably 3 or 4 people that are all thinking that. And actually, it's very personal to yourself. Everyone goes through the same things. Not everyone's perfect. Not everyone's having a great time all the time. Just cut yourself a little bit of slack sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think, that's spot on.
The bad times will happen.
Yeah.
Whether we have this conversation or not, you're still going to have bad experiences in your life.
Yeah, definitely.
Facts, 100%. So, we all can understand that what outweighs that is all the good times.
Yeah.
It's just life, isn't it?
Sure. I think for me, coming away from this point and again, speaking to you boys who have different experiences is everyone, no matter who it is, no 2 people are the same. No 2 people are going to have the same experience. So if you're trying to look out for your mate, just speak to him, just be open, just listen. Or if it's yourself, don't beat yourself up for feeling a certain way. If you look at someone else and think, they've gone, they've lost a relative or someone and they're feeling maybe low about themselves or whatever, don't look at that and feel like your problem isn't as worthy. Do you know what I mean? In the sense of everyone's experience is personal to themselves. Whatever you're dealing with is still important. So be open, be honest about it, and just try and look out for your mates, I suppose. I think, come around here, a couple of beers, ask how each other are. That's all it really needs to be.
Yeah, definitely.
So
replicate this
without the cameras and everything else. Like, yeah, but yeah, 100%. You know, don't overthink it too much in the first step. If you need that help, try and make the first step for yourself. And look, it is hard. We're not saying it's easy. We haven't got all the answers. There isn't a handbook to it. There isn't a one size fits all. But having a conversation and starting it with people you trust and people you get on with is probably the best thing you can do.
Cheers, bro.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Sweet, boys.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure.
See you, Muff.